Yeah.
But tell me something. This is your first ever visit to Pakistan.
First
So
ever.
first impressions are?
Love it.
You love
The
it?
team have done an amazing job to take me around. They show me around. I haven't breathed for a second, literally, because it's been meeting after meeting, meeting customers, meeting some of our suppliers. We went to the factory, and between Karachi, Lahore, Carnival, I still have to do Islamabad, but that will be the agenda for my next visit.
What was your impression of the Carnival factory? I've heard so many good things about it.
And I'm going to be super honest about it. When you speak about packet tea versus tea bags, usually the technologies in tea bags are much more advanced, so you wouldn't expect that a packet tea factory is a state of the art, but this one is. And this is such a big pride for us. This is our biggest factory globally. Yeah, so volume-wise, Carnival factory is the biggest factory. So it's one of our citadels within the organization to make sure that the Pakistan factory shines and continues to grow as we move forward.
Abdullah, before I delve into the journey of Lipton, which is very fascinating, especially for us Pakistani, because many would argue that tea was traditionally not the drink of choice in this part of the world. And it came with the British, and of course, Thomas Lipton made tea to be a popular beverage all over the world. But tell me about you. I have found out that you have Palestinian roots. Your parents, both your parents?
Roots and nationality. So my passport is still Palestinian. I never got another passport. I was born and raised in Lebanon, but both my parents are Palestinian. The entire family is, very proudly. And however, Dubai has been home for the past 15 years. So I've been there since 2008. But the household remains to be a Palestinian household. We still love, cook, eat, drink, and treat each other like a typical Palestinian family.
Abdullah, we are all immigrants at this point in history.
Yeah.
If I look at my own grandparents, they had to migrate from undivided British India to the newly formulated Pakistan, and it had its own horrors. There were several lives lost. When your father had to move at the tender age of 5 to Lebanon, what are the stories you heard growing up, and what did you notice about him?
There's so many stories, but if I can go quickly through one, it's actually the story of walking to the borders, because of course back then they didn't have access to cars, they didn't have access to even ships. So it was a 7-day walk that him and his younger brother, who was 3 at the time, along with their parents, had to do. They slept on the street, obviously, because there was no other option. And eventually they reached the port, which allowed them to go to Lebanon. And you can tell up until today, because it never ended, that this is one big hole that stays with my father. And one thing that makes him emotional is the situation in Palestine. So he's a very strong, rigid, typical older generation man, but when the word Palestine comes on air, his whole demeanor changes, and you see the teary eyes on the spot.
Because that's where the heart is, that's where home is.
Of course.
What does Palestine mean to you?
It will always be home. I mean, and as far as I can be, it will always be home. It will always be, again, I think my personality and the way I was raised and the way that my parents made sure that values and the family ties are everything. I mean, we are what we are raised by. So, and I do give credit to the fact that they come from such a resilient place, and that defines who I am today.